What's up, guys? This is Isaiah from Games, and this will be episode number 8 of our Gaimoria Dev stream. We just got back from a road trip for my 30th birthday from going from Seattle to San Diego. Spent about 2 weeks doing that, stopping by at friends and family along the way, and checked out a couple studios like Riot and Blizzard, and so that's why I haven't had a whole lot to excuse me, to upload the past 2 weeks. I did one Gaimoria Dev stream, and that's about all that the time I had for, because we were just driving and doing all sorts of stuff, and it was super fun. But I'm back, and as I said before I left, and I've said it a couple times, that I wanted to change to a Monday, Wednesday, Friday stream instead of a Tuesday, Thursday, because I felt like that the work that I had been getting done for the streams was actually considerable enough to where I would actually like to do it more than just twice a week. So yeah, this will be me for my first Friday the 13th, so spooky, doing a stream. So I'm going to talk about first things that I have streamed before, work I've done, things I want to stream, and things I want to do in the future and all that. So for the past 7 episodes, they have been focused entirely on fixing Aniah's animations. I'll just pull that up just so we could do a little quick recap of it. Hi Cherish. How you? My pretty wife. Let's see here. So the past several weeks I've been doing a lot of fixing for her run animations and her idle animations. So been doing lots of work on that, liking how it's looking. Still have to do some shadow and gradient fixes on this one, but I might just do that on my own time because I want to start streaming something else. For having 7 episodes, and each episode averaging at about an hour and a half to 2 hours, we basically have like 10 hours of me working on animations, and I want to show you guys something else. So today I was going to show you guys me doing environment painting for some props, but this morning I was actually working on a bunch of other stuff, and I kind of started making this game design map because I've been laying out like all of what I need to make for the game and all that. So I figured I'd just show you guys and just continue working on that because it's kind of interesting. It's very different. It's actual game design related. So I thought you guys might appreciate that. So I'll do a quick little explanation on what I'm doing. So this looks kind of weird for, you know, most people. It's just like a bunch of circles. But in the process of making anything, you gotta go from rough to finer to finer to finer, and then finally to your final. And this is basically a super basic map layout of what I'm assuming the final game would be, where you have like your zones and then traveling to different zones, and yeah, so that's what I've been like working on today. And we'd kind of discussed, me and some of the other people that have helped on the project discussed like how, what's up Raviolio, discussed how the map could be laid out, and it came down to like this really simple layout actually working pretty well. You can see this is a tiny little Aniah down here. Zoom in super far. Probably gonna shrink all these things down too. Or maybe not. Whatever. So what I started is this rough map outline, kind of visualizing, like, the whole process of how she goes to sleep, and she does her, like, astral projection, and then so she'll, like, start in this little area after essentially getting defeated, and then all the zones and all that stuff. And I've already started, like, a key for the various things around the world. So this would be a fun episode for me, at least, to start kind of planning this stuff out, and maybe for you guys to where you can start seeing some ideas that I've been having. Oh, that's too bad. Oh, let's drop that to 60. So on a grand scale, say we have our central hub here where this is basically like the safe zone, and you can see it's not connected to anything. This is the hub where, like, Poot and all the other Avduin will hang out, and you can see it's inaccessible, but you'll see it in, like, the map paintings for the storm zone. Now let's move all this stuff over. Why it keeps picking this up. This file size is really big. It's like 10,000 pixels by 10,000, so... Ooh. Someone just... Ooh, you donated $10. Thank you, Raviolio. I hope you heard that. Yeah. Caught me by surprise, because it happens so rarely. Alright, so I'm gonna move this thing, like, way up here. Let's move this back down. You can see it's run real choppy. That's not the stream that's choppy, it's my Photoshop that's choppy, because it's trying to process this huge 10,000 by 10,000 image. So, yeah. So she starts out in this, like, safe hub. This is where Poot, as I said, all the Avduin are at. This is where the, like, main tower will be. And when you essentially die in this game, you don't actually die, you wake up. And this is where Aniah will be able to, like, run around. Let me grab Aniah. So Aniah would be able to, like, run around in this little area, talk to people, blah 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 blah. And then when she's done, she'll come over here, she'll talk to Poot, she'll go to sleep in front of Poot, and then she astral projects herself, and she comes into the world here. So this is like the Dream Start safe zone. And this is just kind of the super safe zone where, you know, you can power up your pets and all that kind of stuff. So once Aniah enters the dream, she can start running around her little safe zone, and then she exits and goes into the grasslands, which would look a lot like this. So this would be like the first zone that you kind of run around in. A lot of the enemies would be very simple. So you can see I started putting in these, like, difficulty ideas for 1 out of 10, because obviously this is the first zone you'd visit. So difficulty would be super easy, just allow players to kind of figure out controls and fight really basic stuff. And these little white spots would be like transition areas, so she'd run into here and go, and then she's in the Autumn Lands. I'll show you guys a little concept of the Autumn Lands. Grassland. Bottom. This is very rough. But it's a lot like the grasslands, but it's just autumn time. So this would be a little bit more difficult. You'd have wasps and stuff. And you would be able to travel around all in this area. And you'd be open to go into like the Ember lands, the Fluid lands, or the Storm lands up here. I haven't finished making the map, of course. And do the things. So the key that I started up here with all this stuff you see, this is a lot of like gameplay centric stuff, and it's all directly referenced to like Yoshi and Zelda, because I feel like that they have really cool collectible stuff. So obviously in the end I would not be using these art files because they're copyrighted, but you know, this one's not because I made it. But these are just kind of like notes to myself as I work on the game and eventually get to that point to where we're building the world and, you know, I want to start putting collectibles around the map. And as she collects them, you know, ta-da, you got such and such. You get these various upgrades. So, like Zelda, you have fairies in a bottle, and to simplify that, you wouldn't have to get like a net and then like capture a fairy and then put it in a bottle. Basically, I'm just using that as like an image reference to what I would call a self-revive item. And these would probably be the most difficult to find because being able to self-revive is a very powerful ability. So just like in Zelda, you'd find 4. And that actually correlates pretty well with how we have the zones. We have 4 main zones, so that would be 1 per zone. And I just kind of started like putting it around. This is all very non-specific. This is just simple visual stuff for me to think like, okay, in this zone we'd have these items, in this zone we would have these collectible items, and yeah, so I'll just kind of discuss what some of these keys are, because that's what I'm going to spend probably not too long, maybe like an hour, I think, just kind of polishing this map. So yeah, I have the self-revive things, we'll have 1 per zone, and then we'll have the heart pieces, just like Zelda, because that's the kind of health system we're going to use. And, so each area would have specific things in the game, or like in the areas, so you'd have, well, I'll demonstrate, actually, it's better that way. So I can just duplicate it and move it down. Again, these are all very non-specific, so it'll just be me, like... I might actually take this map to much more detail eventually. I probably won't do it during a stream because I'm going to be thinking a lot and not talking very much. Whereas with art, I can talk about it a lot and explain why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I can do that with some game design stuff, but... it'll mostly just be me staring at my monitor. So I'll probably have like 1 of these per zone. Scale all these down. But this is kind of fun stuff. Like, you don't have to be pretty at making the art. It's fun to just like make, you know, little maps and stuff, which is pretty cool. Probably scale this down a lot too. I'll explain what these things are in a sec. And so I was thinking it would be nice if there was like a total of, per zone, there's a full heart container. So just like Zelda, it's 4 to 1, so you'd have 1, 2, 3, and 4. And you can see that I'm planning on having the 3rd area for each element be about 50% larger. So that's where you would have the more difficult enemies and you would have more collectibles. That way, it's rewarding for a player to be running around and fighting against these harder things because there's more good things to get there. My idea with these totems is they're essentially a fast travel. That way, if you end up dying and you go back to the hub or whatever, you wouldn't have to start. That's why there's one here. You would start the game here, but you wouldn't have to manually run all the way back out here if you died. If you end up finding the collectibles for fast travel, then you would unlock the totem for the area, which is a lot like Diablo 2's waypoint system. And you could just fast travel, like, and warp over, or if you collect it way out here, you could fast travel way out here. My idea with this Forgotten Forest thing is it's a hidden area. So you can see like the difficulty for the Fluid Lands is 3, 4, and 5 out of 10. So that's kind of a linear progression in difficulty. And then it'd be the same over here. But this area would be kind of hidden and it would have way more collectible items. So it would be more difficult too. Plus, that's kind of a way to reward the players if they're experienced with the game and they felt like playing through again. They would know that this place existed and they would know that there's more collectibles. And then you turn into Mother Mai. You're able to permanently upgrade one of your items. So for example, if you collect 10 Mai and then you go and turn them in, you can upgrade heart pieces to give you a full container. And then these little things are referenced from Zelda on 3DS. I think it's called The Link Between Worlds, which was like kind of a throwback to the Super Nintendo one. These little Mai creatures, for every 10 that you collect and then you turn into Mother Mai, you're able to permanently upgrade one of your items. So for example, if you collect 10 Mai and then you go and turn them in, you can upgrade your bow from shooting 1 arrow to shooting 3 arrows. So that's like a very good upgrade, and that incentivizes the player to find these things, because if you upgrade all your weapons, they get super powerful. And if you upgrade, or if you find all 100 throughout the game, you get a huge upgrade for your sword. So that encourages players to find every single one of them in the whole game, and you get a huge upgrade to your sword that is not accessible in any other way. And I enjoyed that process, and that's something when I've beaten that game 3 or 4 times, and one of the first things I did was go through and collect those things as much as possible, as early as possible, because they give you such a strong advantage that, I don't know, it's fun. Like making your bow shoot 3 arrows, or making your hammer, like when it hits the ground, hit a way larger area, and they provide visual upgrades as well, so your bow and all your weapons look different, so just a cool thing. So my interpretation of that for Gaimoria, I'm going to be talking a lot this video because I'm going to be explaining a lot of gameplay stuff, so I hope you don't get annoyed with me talking so much. What's up, Supreme DDT? So yeah, my interpretation is I would have these essentially Mai things around the world, but focused on each pet. So we'd have like the Fluid, Ember, and Storm. And as you can see, like the collectibles are pet specific, spread throughout the whole game. And because each pet will have 2 abilities, when you collect 10 of them, you can choose to upgrade one of their 2 abilities. And if you collect all 20, then you'll get both of the upgrades for their abilities, and they will evolve. I'd originally thought on having the pets evolve 3 times, but that just makes for way more balancing, way more art, way more animation, way more just like bug fixing and everything. And so since I'm not, you know, a team of 20 people, 30 people, it's best to just make things as simple as we can, but while still capturing the essence of what I'd want. So instead of having like 3 pet evolutions, we just have the one, and when they did evolve, they would have more stamina, they'd resist more hits, and they would do increased damage on their evolution. So this is actually a very strong incentive to collect all these things, because you will evolve all your pets and they'll be way more powerful. So this Yoshi Yarn thing is something where me and my wife were playing Yoshi's Woolly World on Wii U, and they have cool collectibles in that, and they always have. They have the 5 flowers, which if you collect 5 flowers in every level for the whole zone, once you do that, it unlocks an optional new level that's super hard, but very satisfying to finish. So my interpretation of that is, perhaps we have these yarns around the world, and if the player finds all 3... The player finds all 3 for the pet, then we would allow them in like options to hue and saturate. Dude, this is exactly like, you can change the hue, it's saturate or desaturate. We basically give the player the ability to do that to their pets. So it's just a cosmetic thing, and I always enjoy that kind of cosmetic stuff. Art filter. Oh jeez. I don't need this to look super pretty because it's just like a design map. Design maps are usually kind of ugly because their main purpose is just getting the point across. Yeah, I've always been a huge fan of collectibles in games, which is why I like the Zelda games, I like the Yoshi games. That's a huge thing I liked in Final Fantasy X. Your ultimate weapons for each of the characters are actually found. You have to find, I think it's like 2 or 3 pieces throughout the game, and then you have to go somewhere and like perform a task, and then you get their ultimate weapon. And that's kind of the coolest thing to me, because it encourages you to go find all the hidden stuff in the game. And that's what I like to do, so that's what I'm going to do in Gaimoria. So I think that's the main things that I was thinking of for the game. So you can see that there's going to be tons of collectibles all over the map. Mostly there's going to be tons of these Maya stuff. But that'll like feed into my OCD. Like when I play games, I like to find all the secrets. And these, as I was saying, you would find 3 pieces. And when you find the 3 pieces, that would unlock the fast travel. So when you find the 3 pieces, then that unlocks fast travel for the zone. down. So I'll give you guys an example of like what I'll do eventually. Probably not for this stream because, as I said, it's just going to be me thinking a lot. But what I would do is I'd kind of go through here and I would start roughing out some paths. So if like the player comes in here, start doing like, oh, maybe the path could go like this. Then like, you know, this would lead out to that. And then we'd kind of have it a little maze-like, so it would split off. And then it could go like that. Go like that. And there's like a little hidden space that goes out to here to where you find that. Maybe we'll have like a big open area. So this is stuff that I probably won't do during the stream because I just, as I said 100 times, I need to think about it. So eventually, you know, the player will find their way around. We'd probably have a couple other like little hidden areas. Something like that. Yeah, so that's kind of like what map design is. Just kind of, I mean, there's a whole level of complexity that goes to this, and this would actually probably be like on the main path, like right at the start. But I think you get the idea, like, this stuff would be kind of just hidden around, and whereas at the bottom of the list, these fast travel things would be pretty easy to find. Like here, obviously, they're like right in your path, right when you enter the zone. There's Aniah. So she's like coming through. You enter the zone, first thing you see is like, oh, there's this totem and I can't use it. What's the deal? And then as you travel like another and stuff to go and find it, because they're extremely powerful. Whereas at the bottom of the list, these fast travel things would be pretty easy to find. Like here, obviously, they're like right in your path, right when you enter the zone. There's Aniah. So she's like coming through. You enter the zone, first thing you see is like, oh, there's this totem and I can't use it. What's the deal? And then as you travel like another, 10 feet down, you're like, oh, look, there's a little piece of this thing. Oh, I must have to collect more of these in order to make this thing work. So that's a way to communicate to the player through design. And then as they follow the main path, they're like, oh, look, here's another one. So now I have 2 out of 3, so now I have to go and find final piece somewhere. And then, they go through and they kind of travel and they find some other hidden item over here and they go through. Then blah, 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 blah. You know what? Maybe they don't even get it, and they go to the next zone. And when they're in the next zone, they see another one of these. And they're like, wait, I didn't collect all the stuff in the last one. So they, like, come back here, and they're, like, searching around. They're like, oh, here we go, 3 out of 3. So now they have the fast travel unlocked. So that's kind of the idea with this design map. I'm just going to kind of... It's probably not going to be this complex either, like this is kind of... in terms of game design, this is actually pretty confusing. It's very maze-like. And so for these first zones, I'd probably have it be much more simple. But as I said, this is something I probably won't do during the stream because it'll take me a long time to just think about how complex I want these maze-like elements to be. And then I want their maze-like elements to increase as we get through here. And then as we get to like the final area, like, do we want it to be more open? Do we want it to be even more maze-like? How many paths do we want? How many items are going to be collectible in each area? So there's going to be a lot of thinking and iterating, and ultimately playtesting. That's the only way to truly discover if your, map design and stuff is actually good or not, is playing the game over and over and over. And if it's not fun, then you just change it. So I think that's enough of a description. I spent basically 30 minutes talking about what this stuff is. So I'm just going to kind of continue what I was doing and kind of polish this out. Then depending on time, I'll go and finish Aniah's shadows for her uprun animation because that was something we needed to finish. You can see she has no gradient. So that'll be like the last thing I do today because that won't take a whole lot of time. Just by the rain so you can... birdies. How's your guys' week? You can also see like how I laid these out is kind of different too. That way it's not just like a straight line, like circle, like right, 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 or down, 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 left, left, left. This also actually communicates to the player like if they're going to be going like this and then they have to go up and up and up. That makes it feel like you're climbing a mountain, which is my point with the whole Emberlands, is you'd kind of be climbing up a volcano. So that's why I laid this one like this, so it's like you start at the base of the volcano, and you get higher, and then you get to the top. And then this one is like very like up and down, so that's kind of insinuating that it's very windy. So this is an optional zone, as I said, so it'd be very maze-like. What was the highlight of your week? Even for being just a normal week. Photoshop is running so slow. Easier that way, I can just select one and they all move. So This is the storm zone, so it'll be kind of kind of the same. As the Emberlands going up storm zone, you're climbing up some mountains. What kind of whiskey did you get? It's not a bad highlight. Grab myself. Yeah, I've never even heard of that. Apparently Cherish has. She's the whiskey guru. What kind of creepy face is that? Might be a good idea to actually have a second warp location. For these large areas. Probably like close to a boss. I don't think that I was going to specifically have a boss for this, like, forest area, because it was just going to be a way for you to collect all the final power-ups. And the fact that the difficulty is really high already, I feel like that they would be challenging on their own. Wondering if I don't actually have all the self-revives. Well, probably could. Big. Yeah, I've always liked optional bosses in games, like Final Fantasy 7, 8, 9, 10. They always have the Ultima weapon and Omega weapon and all that stuff. I thought that was really cool, because when you play by yourself, like, they drop really good stuff too, and you can steal from them, and they drop some of the best things from when you steal from them. And there's nowhere else you can get them, so I like the idea of optional bosses and optional zones that are increasingly difficult, that have more reward. So a player could go through the whole game without ever encountering that stuff, but if they wanted to be as powerful as they possibly could, and like fight optional bosses and all that stuff, then, you know, that content is available to them. And it's way too early in the game to even, like, start making steps to making that a thing, but like, pretty much my answer to that is yes, I also like that, and if able, with time and money and all that stuff to continue to work on this, I would ultimately like to do that. I'll give you guys a little example of what I'm talking about with this hue shift saturation stuff. I kind of tested it with the pets. So, show Stalagma, for example. So, if I put in like a hue saturation layers adjustment, basically I'd be giving the players the ability to play with all these sliders in-game. So if they wanted to make them like green or yellow, they could. If they wanted to make them like purple or blue or whatever. And then increased fidelity would eventually be like if we wanted to let the players play with other colors, like his belly color and then his main skin color would be cool. But this is the idea, is to like let players do that and like even make them like completely black and white if they wanted, or you know, whatever. See, that's kind of a cool color, like this deep purplish. So that's the idea behind the yarn stuff, is to let the players have control of how their pets look, at least a little bit. So I was thinking, because I gotta have some collectibles out here too, and so I'd have some of these in here. I'd also probably kind of put them nearish. Some in here. Does this stuff seem interesting to you guys? I know it's very different from what I had shown the past, like, 7 episodes. But this is stuff that you do when making games, so I figured I would show it to you. So let's see here, we have my per pet. We have 4 zones. Okay, well I'm glad you guys are interested in it, so it's not like wasting your guys' time. So that's like 5 per zone. I want to have at least 10 per zone for that. So 10 per zone main. And scattered. So as I said, these like my things is what's going to upgrade your pet's abilities and then ultimately evolve them. So it's a good idea to have at least 10 of them. These are numbers that are going to get played with, obviously, in game design. But for start, you can just start with at least 10 of them will be in their main zone, because that makes sense. So if you're going through the Ember Zone, you know, you're going to find things that will power up your Ember pet. So I'll just start kind of playing with that. And then the other 10 will be scattered throughout the game. So it'll probably be way smaller. one room, pretty much. Alright, so we'll have 10 throughout here, so that'll be probably like 5, 2, 5, 3, 2, like that. So that'll be zone X O3 will have the most. Zone XO2 will have second most, and then zone XO1 will have the least. We'll have 2 in the first zone. Three in here. 5 in here. Justify its size, difficulty. There, just like that. I mean, this will all get changed eventually, but this is just a, it's just like a visual representation of things, of like notes. Because a picture's worth 1,000 words, right? So instead of having me do a million little notes, I'll show you guys a little note that I wrote myself in my email a while ago. So you can see that we have this stuff here where it's like talking about the heart containers, the the Maya stuff, berries, yarn, and all this stuff. So that stuff, that'll be, I mean, that's an email I wrote myself for notes, and instead of wanting to having emails upon notepads and things in my, like, you know, look at this. I mean, this is what I was sketching a while ago, and this was just like, see if you guys can even see it on OBS. Yeah, it's the exact same thing. It's the map that I was kind of like figuring out of how I wanted it to be, so I just started putting it into Photoshop and then consolidating all these little notes into basically what's going to be one big map with, you know, this is stuff that I emailed myself, just make my life easier. So, as I said, the location of these things don't actually matter. It's just visual notes to myself and others that will work on this eventually, so that we know, like, oh, okay, well, we're going to want 5 of these things here, we're going to want 3 here and 2 here, and voila. So there's 5 more to find. So I'm going to put some throughout here, because that's the whole point of this area. So actually put some in here. So instead of 5, 3, 2, we'll do 4, 1. Will give us 3 to put in other places. So we can scatter some over here. And we can put 1, 4. So you can see this Forgotten Forest is going to have tons and tons and tons of stuff in it. So it's going to have collectibles for all the Maya. It'll have all sorts of stuff in here, which is what justifies it being a very difficult place to be, and also being hidden. So only the players that truly want to find all of the collectibles to make their pets as powerful as possible will be the ones that venture into this area to find it all. So I'm just going to do the same. This. Put somewhere here. Five. Oh. Like I said, you know, now since I have this little drawing, I can like kind of put them. Oh, they'll be hidden in these little paths. 2, 3. 5. Be 1, 2, and 4. I can actually count these. So I'm actually going to rename the layers too, so I know that I have enough. Might not have put enough. That would suck if I like ended up going through making the game, placing them all, and there's just I was one short of anyone ever getting the final upgrade for the water pit or the fluid pit. See that at all? Four, 5, 7. Oh, it's because I didn't put one extra one here. It's supposed to be 2, 3, 5, and I put 2, 2, 5. That's why. This should be Ember 0, 0 from E. Exciting work, watching me type things over and over. Correct amount for Ember. Alright. So now just the storm ones. Have the game 5. 3. 5. 5. So then 4, 2, and 1. 1. 4. Yep, that's 20. We have 0, 0 here. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Cool. So now we have all those placed. So this is actually kind of looking how I wanted it to. Like using older Final Fantasy games as a frame of reference for finding collectibles. Usually when you get to the later part of the game, you know, you find most of your upgrades as you play, but then a bulk of like your main stuff you'll find in the final optional zone. So this is kind of starting to remind me of what I would have expected from like a Final Fantasy game, which is a good thing. You can see I can always just select them and move them, so whatever. So now that I placed those, so that should be all 60 of those. And the reason I scattered some in here too is because it's important for when the player starts playing the game to get a couple collectibles and start the collection. Because if you put all your collectibles way in like out in the far areas and you put them all super hidden, then the player will never even know that they exist. So it'll be good to put some of these in plain sight, like I was saying with this here, because when the player finds it in plain sight, that's how they learn that they even exist. I mean, aside from like looking at their pause menu and seeing, oh, what are all these things? Like in Zelda, you have, when you press start, you have a whole bunch of like blank spaces on your pause screen because that shows all the various things you can eventually collect. Whereas if you just put some of these in plain sight and you know, Aniah or the player just runs and collects it, they're like, oh, okay, so if I find more of these, then I can power up my pets. Or if I find more of these, I can change my pet's colors. Or, you know, if I find more heart containers, or whatever we eventually call them, you know, that's a trope. They should understand that when they collect 4, they will get 1 more heart container. So I'm gonna put some in here. This gets into design of like where I would want these. I don't want them to be too plentiful in one area. It's always good to have them in the difficult zone too. So I need to think of them in terms of 1 full heart. So 1, 2, 3. Or 0, because that's the key. Assuming. We have 3. And since these are basically going to be my second most difficult to find, it'd actually be good if I don't have a, you know, a proper number per zone. That way players aren't always going to be thinking like, well, there has to be exactly this many here, so that means there has to be exactly many in this place. So let's just say I give them like an extra 3 hearts, which doubles her health. Or say 6 hearts, so 6 times is 18. Or 6 times 4 is 24. Let's do a little power of Google. How many heart containers are in Zelda? Total of 16 containers. Pieces. So Ocarina of Time is a good one to... So 36 divided by 6, so there's... Or divided by 4, so that's 9. Because there's 4 per heart container, so there's 4 pieces per container, so because there's 36 pieces, that means there are 9 hearts to get, or 9 containers to build. Because I'm kind of cutting that down, basically cutting the entirety of all mainline, or big stream games done, I'm not going to do 36, because that's a lot. I was thinking like 18. That's like 3 extra hearts. That seems about right. That's half as many. I'll do 18, which kind of goes in line with how many Mai there are too. So you're 3. 4. 5. 12. 14. 4 more. So that should be 18. Seems my counting was way off. Was it? Is it that far off? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 11, 12, 13, 16. 2 more. Guess I'm terrible at counting. So 2 more. I have 3 in there. So I could probably put one over here. So that way the player feels like they're getting a full heart container in this zone. 1 more in here. So 17 and 8. 17. So that means... Wait. Bad at math anyway. Oh, I do want 16. Why was I thinking 18? There we go. Because 4 does not divide into 18. I'm bad at math. 4 divides into 16 for 4 extra hearts. Cool. So we have 3 here. I could probably take 1 here and put it in here. As I said, it'd be nice for the player to feel like they got a full heart container here. Yeah, it's nice that like there's not a heart container exactly in every spot. So that way there's like 1 in here, 2 in here. Then 0 here, 1 and 1. 1, 0, 1. 1, 1, 1. And 1, 1, and 4. 16. So let's... self. So the last thing I have to do is those little yarn balls, but I gotta pee, so I'll be right back. Stop. Backward back. Let's see. Yeah, totally. I'd have to find out how to do that correctly. Well, I mean, it wouldn't be too difficult, but a simple hue shift will actually make it not work, so I'd have to do like a level adjustments. But yeah, I totally agree with that. Like, having all your pets be black, that'd be pretty sick. I'll do like a little demo of that. Something like that's pretty cool. Yeah. So I want to be able to give players like the ability to tweak, because it's just a matter of like a couple little adjustments, and all that stuff totally exists. on the Unity asset store, so yeah, that's something I'd want to do eventually. So let's place some yarn balls around. I got 1, 2, 3 for that. I think I just need to place the, did I already do it? I just need to place it for the storms. So I guess we'll place these little things too. Not like the end of the world or something. Yep. I always like black stuff. I love black dragons. Like the D&D black dragons are awesome. Here's some of my favorite dragon designs. Black dragons are sweet. That was one of the things I really liked about Neverwinter Nights was, well, one of the, I liked a lot about Neverwinter Nights, the first one at least. That looks freaking sweet. They just, were designed, everything was designed so cool. The Dungeons and Dragons Red Dragon is kind of like your staple dragon. But what I really liked about the Dungeons and Dragons is each of them looked very different. They had very different like horn shapes. So like the Black Dragon, the horns come down like that. Like the Red Dragons looked very much. This is kind of like what I feel like most dragons are based off of, is the Dungeons and Dragons Red Dragon. This was like the staple before most other dragons. But then they have all sorts of colors, like they have blue dragons, and then they have all the chromatic dragons. Yeah, it's like green, gold, copper, silver, and they all look different, and they're all fucking badass. Like, super cool mouth. Yeah, these guys made their dragons so cool. I don't think there's any other dragon designs that I like more than the D&D dragons. So like a white dragon. Also more like bird-like with beak features. Bronze. Silver dragons are really cool. They're very like regal looking, almost have like a little beard. I think the chromatic dragons were the good dragons. Like the silver, bronze, and gold were good guys. And I think the primary colors were bad dragons, so like the black, red, blue, white. I'm going off on a little tangent here, but yeah, D&D dragons are freaking cool. They have copper and brass and everything, and they're all different. Like their wing design is different. Brass dragon. Similar, probably the same. Copper and brass look the same, just different names. Anywho, yeah. Black dragons are cool. Their horns like come down in front. Anyways. So for my own sake, I'm just going to put some of these around. So even the way that I'm organizing my Photoshop file is I can go through and I can hide all this stuff very easily. And kind of suggest to myself the main path of this too. Yeah, the Lord of the Rings movies, of course, came after Dungeons and Dragons, and Dungeons and Dragons was really like... so Tolkien was the guy that kind of created the first orcs and goblins and trolls and all that kind of stuff. Well, maybe not the very first, but really made a world for them. And then I feel like D&D was really the first project that visualized all of that. So the movie obviously came way after a lot of the D&D stuff was made back in the 70s and 80s and 90s. So obviously the Lord of the Rings movies pull a lot of strong influences from the Dungeons and Dragons visual representations of what came from Tolkien originally. There's even Balrogs in Dungeons and Dragons as well, and they look very similar. Well, I think that's all the collectible stuff. Sweating like crazy. I got used to the nice cool air and on the mainland, and now I'm back here and I'm just back to sweating balls. But I'll give you an example of how I was saying, like, I put all this stuff into good categories. So, like, all the collectibles are all gone. I put them all into a folder, all together. So if I ever needed to, like, clean the area out so I could look at stuff more cleanly, I just have it all into one folder, and I can have them all pop back up. So this is probably like a general layout of how, you know, things may eventually look. And I'm not going to drag this part on too long because I kind of did what I said I was going to, covered most of the stuff, and the rest of the day I'm just going to kind of look at this myself and start playing with it. So I'm going to move on and just wrap up Aniah's uprun animation, and then going to call it done for today. Let's see here. So I just need to get this stuff with the proper shadows and all that, and that will pretty much wrap up her little jog animation. Just gotta select the opacity of all these things. Shot. A little faster. Do it. Alright. Now I'll just fill the mask. Fill the shadow mask. Now she has a proper gradient. Need to clean up some of these colors. So I'm thinking with the self-revive items that they would function a lot like the bottles in Zelda. So once you collect a bottle in Zelda, you'll always have it. However, in Zelda, you have to constantly refill the bottle by using your net to catch a fairy. And my initial thought with Gaimoria's self-revive is that once you collect it, you would always have it. And if you die, it'll give you an option of like, do you want to revive? You have 4 out of 4 remaining. Or if you only have 1, you have like, do you want to revive? You have 1 out of 1 remaining. And you could choose to either revive at like a save point or immediately where you're at. And then it is consumed until you are completely out of self-revives. And when you eventually like die or whatever again, then you're just sent back to the Obduin's hub. Because personally, I don't really like consumable items in games. Like I just never really use them. So with Gaimoria, I'm just gonna kind of avoid them. Clean up all this stuff a bit. Because if they were like a one-time thing and you'd have to go and recollect them every time, that becomes a hassle to me. And as a player, I would just get annoyed having to be like, oh damn it, I died. Now I have to go to each of the 4 zones again and recollect all my self-revives. So I'm not going to be doing that. It'll just be like, once you got it, you got it. And then you have them until you run out, and then once you essentially die or whatever, wake up from the dream, then they just refill themselves automatically. Just as kind of like a convenient way to help you stay in the game without having to go back to the Obduin's place, unless you really have to. Alright, so now let's paint some shadows on her and be done for today. Let's see. This in shadow. do that to all of them first so I don't mess it up. So I'm adding shadow to where her head lands on her shoulders, erasing it so that it looks like the ponytail kind of sticks out. Yeah, it makes a huge difference. It just makes everything, yeah, makes everything pop. Really, the kind of shading I'm doing is quite simple. I'm just doing a lot of gradients and then just like strong drop shadow. The trick is just learning through practice of like where your drop shadow needs to go. That just takes practice. A little bit on her arms. That's okay. It'll be going on YouTube. You can watch it. Alright, let's see how this looks. That's okay. It'll be going on YouTube. You can watch it. There, that should be it. Get out here so I can get away from everything to... There. Got a little drop shadow where her hair is. There's one thing I do have to tweak with her idle animation, that's how strong this shadow is on the bottom of her head. Because I soften that with everything else, like her run animation, I have it as a soft line instead of a hard line. Here you can see it's a soft line, so that's one little tweak I gotta do, but I like how that run animation looks. The shadow sweeps across her pretty well. Might have to pull up the gradient on this a little bit. The darks that I'm seeing. This one, I think. This one. Just gotta pull that up a little bit. That's about it. Yeah, so that's like a run animation that... Oh, my butt. Oh, need like more cushion. I've been sitting on this thing so much it's like wearing down to the metal. Oh, sit on a pillow. Anyways, what's cool is you guys basically saw me make her entire run animation. Like, the only one you guys did not see me make was this one, and you guys watched me make her idle animations and everything, so everything that you see with here, here, and all this stuff, like, you guys watched me make all of that. So to me, that's super cool that I now have all this on video, so if people ever want to go back and, or, you know, maybe 2 years down the line when we finally ship the game, I could be like, hey, if you want to learn how to do this, then I made a bunch of videos where I just did it, and you could watch it and see what I did. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with how this stuff turned out. I'm very surprised. There's still like a little bit of a weird delay with some of it when she changes directions, and again, that's just that bug that I had talked about way back in like episode 1 or 2. We'll get around to fixing it eventually, but like it feels like she looks consistent between the animations. There's lots of fidelity, like small details. I'm really happy with it. So I'm just gonna fix her little idle animation here and then I'll be done. So I'm just gonna soften that shadow on the bottom of her hair for her idle. Right here. I don't even have any soft shadow there. So just make it much less noticeable for starters. Put in the soft gradient. Gradient is down here. Do need to put her ponytail shadow though, because that's how it is with her up run. This. Let's see how this looks. That's better. Now it doesn't go from like a super sharp shadow to a soft shadow when she starts running. That was it. Little shadow tweak. So one day I'll get to her sprint animation so it doesn't look all poopy like this. It'll look nice like this. I might kind of just tackle that like on my own here and there just so I don't, you know, get out of the mode of animating stuff decently. But I want to be able to show you guys stuff besides animation, so like I want to be able to show you guys how I make these effects and how I do the environments, painting things, all sorts of stuff. But yeah, it's starting to kind of feel like a game, having her run around in it, looking good. Alright, well that was just shy of 2 hours. Did lots of cool stuff. Started our Friday stream for the first time. And I'll be back with you guys in 3 days, doing Monday, Wednesday, Friday now. So yeah, let's have a break on the weekend, and I'll be back Monday, 4 p.m. Hawaii, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern. And if you have any friends that may be interested in this, just direct them towards our streams or towards our YouTube stuff or towards our Patreon. The link's below my face right here. Yeah, thanks for coming and watching. We had about 3 or 4 people today, a little less than before, but that's also understandable because we, will there be some ruins in the background? You mean like old buildings and stuff? If you're asking like old buildings and all that, then yes. It's not just going to be plant life everywhere. There, ruins and buildings and things is what makes a place feel like things or people used to live there. So yes, that will be in eventually. Just not yet. So if that answers your question, I'll end the stream. Otherwise, if it doesn't answer it, then I'll try and answer it better. Yeah, so that's what I was gonna do today. I was gonna do like painting of props and all that kind of stuff. But just because I had started that map, I decided to just show it today. So if nothing else really comes up on my plate, Monday I'm gonna start showing you guys how I actually paint. So like how I paint the stump or whatever. So the actual painting will come soon. In fact, it should be on Monday. I'll show you guys like basically all the process I did to make all these little props and everything. These are all just hand painted in Photoshop. You can see here, this is like a big circle. This is actually tying into the map that I was making, and then there's like these little transitions. And then this goes into another big circle. That's kind of like what I was making today in Photoshop, where I have all this stuff in big circles. And then I have like little transition points. So that's kind of what it will be eventually. Then for how massive it is, it was just me trying to get a feel for scale. And still, she's not going to be this big. She'd probably be like this big. So yeah, the world would be large, and that's not, I'm not concerned about that, because our tool set is strong enough to where I can make large environments like this very, very easily. That's the benefit of working in the AAA industry and just learning all that kind of stuff, so making something this big is just a matter of like how much vert painting I do. I don't think I'm going to have the autumn lands and the grasslands be this big, but I think the scale for these areas is pretty accurate. Like, I feel like people should spend about a half hour in each little area, because I don't think Gaimoria is gonna, I don't plan for it to take someone like 40 hours to complete. I'd be happy if it took someone like 8 hours, because that's a good amount for an indie game. For, we'd probably charge 10-15 bucks for 8 hours. I feel like that's good. Yeah, I'm gonna end it. Thanks for coming and watching, and I'll see you guys on Monday. Toodles.